the heir to New York's elite Washington family, Frederick, is about to dump me. The day his first love returned to the country, I was a mess, sobbing like a storm. Does this mean he'll never see his brother again? I wailed. What no one knew was that I was the #1 fan of the celebrity William Hand, Frederick's younger brother. In fact, to get closer to him, I'd willingly become Frederick's mistress. But later, Frederick loosened his tie, pinning me against the wall. His voice dropped to a low, gravelly whisper as he buried his face near my ear. Say it again, who do you really love? After Frederick's first love returned to the country, he decided to end things with me. My coworker, Annie, didn't miss the chance to gloat as she sauntered past me. You were just Washington's little distraction. Looks like your time's up. No figure, no charm, how can you compete with someone as perfect as her? Annie, she is Frederick's first love, Monica Chase, had already announced her return with a dramatic post on social media, this time in Taking Back What's Mine. Her fans were thrilled. When Monica left the country years ago, paparazzi captured Frederick's heartbreak at the airport. Clad in a black trench coat, his tall figure radiated melancholy, his refined features shadowed by unmistakable sorrow. The photos trended for weeks, leaving the public longing for her return and their inevitable reunion. And then, there was me. An unwelcome third wheel in their destined love story. It wouldn't take much effort for Monica to leverage public opinion and force me out of the picture. I didn't argue back this time, simply sniffing as I went to my boss' office to request leave. My best friend came over to comfort me, going so far as to burn every photo of Frederick I had in my room. At first, I sat there, numb, unmoved. But then she pulled out a photo of Frederick and his brother, William, standing together. My breath hitched. And I immediately snatched it from her, clutching it as I burst into heart-wrenching sobs. Does this mean he'll never see his brother again? I fell in love with William back when he was a nobody. With his breathtakingly chiseled features, he never slacked, even when playing minor roles. He was warm and polite, often leaving comforting comments under my Instagram posts when I was going through rough patches in life. Watching him grow from an unknown rookie to a superstar gave me a strange sense of pride, like I was witnessing the success of someone I'd nurtured. Then I discovered something shocking. Though they didn't share a last name, William was the younger brother of New York elite Frederick Washington. I couldn't get close to William. But I met Frederick. Frederick had been groomed as the heir to the Washington family since birth. Handsome, charming, and surrounded by beautiful women, he carried an aura of effortless elegance. I worked tirelessly to get close to him. Finally mustering the courage to admit, I'm a fan of William's. Leaning lazily against the sofa, Frederick gave me a faint smile, his aristocratic air almost intimidating. That's the kind of nonsense, he said in a slow, teasing drawl, that I've heard far too often. Let me give you one more chance. His gaze turned cloudy, unreadable. Why are you really trying to get close to me? I clenched my fists, unsure where I found the courage. Standing on tiptoe, I kissed him softly. For you. Frederick and I had been together for 5 months. At work, no one dared stop me as I stormed toward his office. Had just finished a meeting, and I could hear the voices of a few people inside, talking about something personal. You're really breaking up with Victoria? One of them asked. Frederick, dressed in a crisp white shirt, tapped the table lightly with his slender fingers and glanced up from his laptop. Were we ever even together? He replied flatly. To the others, it probably sounded mocking. But to me, there was a trace of vulnerability. The room erupted in laughter. Come on, Victoria is perfect, she's gorgeous and sweet. If I had a girlfriend like Victoria, I'd be over the moon. A few seconds passed before Frederick's sharp gaze silenced the room. I didn't mean it like that, bro, the other man stammered, looking uncomfortable. Everyone knows Victoria is completely devoted to you. That much was true. Since we started dating, I'd never interfered in Frederick's personal matters. Sure, I'd been tempted, but aside from that first kiss, I never initiated anything physical. I didn't touch his money, either. Even if he bought me a cup of coffee, I'd insist on treating him to dinner to even things out. So, what exactly was he dissatisfied with? I knocked on the door. The room went silent. The others quickly packed up their things and left, awkward smiles plastered on their faces. I held my emotions in check as I asked, why? I hadn't even gotten William's autograph yet. Frederick's gaze fell on my tear-reddened eyes, then flickered away. With a swift motion, he signed a check for $5 million and slid it toward me. Can $5 million buy me out of my feelings for William? I hesitated for just a second before tearing the check in half. His assistant's eyes widened in shock, but Frederick's expression remained calm. Let her tear it, he said, his tone indifferent. Unable to hold back, the assistant muttered, Miss Victoria is upset because of Miss Monica, isn't she? Frederick cut him off with a sharp glance and turned his full attention to me. Remember the game we played? I owe you a wish. You have one chance to ask for whatever you want, and I'll make it happen. I finally snapped back to reality. If Monica was truly Frederick's one and only love, I had no right to stand in the way. Clenching my fists, I looked him straight in the eye and said firmly, I'll agree to break up with you. I won't bother you anymore. Frederick adjusted his gold-rimmed glasses, his entire presence exuding a frigid chill. His thin lips parted as if he wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. Tentatively, I asked, Can I have one last dinner with you at your house? His brows arched slightly, and to my surprise, his mood seemed to lift. Because of Monica's return, the company was abuzz with people waiting for a drama-filled spectacle. Annie, of course, took the opportunity to hover around me. Victoria, she began, her tone unusually friendly, I have a good heart, you know? Let me introduce you to a boyfriend. He works at my brother's company. Sure, his salary is low right now, but he's a kind guy, and his parents are really down to earth. If you settle down with him, marry him, and have his kids, he'll treat you like a queen for life. I wasn't sure why she was so invested in everyone else's love life. When the clock hit quitting time, I grabbed my bag and left without missing a beat. Thanks, Annie, but such a great boyfriend sounds like someone you should keep for yourself. She trailed after me all the way to the front of the building, but before she could push her matchmaking agenda any further, a sleek Rolls-Royce pulled up and blocked my path. The window rolled down, revealing a face so striking it almost felt surreal. Frederick's voice was calm, but carried an undeniable authority as he addressed Annie. What's this about a new boyfriend? Annie froze, her confidence crumbling instantly. She stammered but managed no coherent response. Frederick's gaze shifted to me, softening as he said gently, I'm here to pick you up. Get in. Those deep, soulful eyes of his always seemed to hold a quiet tenderness when they landed on me. It was ironic, though. To everyone else, this looked like a romantic gesture, but in reality, we were on our way to what was essentially a breakup dinner. Annie stood there, dumbfounded. Her face pale as she stuttered, Darling, I was just joking earlier. Don't take it seriously. I ignored her and reached for the car door, but luck clearly wasn't on my side. From behind me, a sweet, feminine voice called out, Fred. Is that really you? That was the first time I saw Monica. Dressed in a glittering bodycon dress that accentuated her curves, she was breathtakingly beautiful, bold and commanding attention the moment she appeared. She strode past me as if I didn't exist, acting as though she and Frederick were deeply familiar with one another. Did you know I was here? Did you come to pick me up? Frederick's smile faded, his expression cooling noticeably as he turned his head to glance at me. It was then that Monica's demeanor shifted slightly, her confident air dimming as if she suddenly remembered something. The atmosphere grew heavy, and worried this might impact my chances of seeing William, I quickly interjected. Mr. Washington invited me to his home to discuss work matters over dinner. Monica's eyes flicked to me, scanning me from head to toe before muttering under her breath, Someone like you thinks they're worthy of riding in Fred's car or dining at his house? I said nothing, avoiding the front seat and sliding into the back. The moment Monica reached for the passenger door handle, however, the lock clicked audibly. Frederick's deep voice cut through the tense silence. You're sitting in the back, too. As I stepped out of the car holding a small box, Frederick lifted his gaze slightly, his tone casual as he asked, What's so precious? I instinctively hugged the box tighter. A gift. After a brief pause, he asked again, For whom? For someone very important, I replied. The corner of Frederick's mouth curved into a small smile, and his fingers tapped a light rhythm on the steering wheel. It wasn't for him, so why was he so pleased? I didn't dwell on it further. The Washington family held weekly dinners, and this time even William managed to carve out time to attend. It wasn't often I got to see him up close like this. His sharp, defined features mirrored Frederick's in some ways, but William's softer, upward-tilted eyes gave him a gentler aura. The dinner conversation inevitably centered around Monica, with everyone praising her beauty and talent. By the end, someone couldn't resist making a thinly veiled jab at me. If only you hadn't gone abroad, Fred's life would have been so much simpler. Fred, don't you agree? They added, trying to drag him into the conversation. Frederick made it abundantly clear where his attention lay on me. His gaze lingered, not just on me, but also on William. However, when he spoke to William, his tone wasn't particularly kind. William, don't eat too much spicy food. William frowned slightly, his delicate brows knitting together as if he felt wronged. How could he speak to William like that? Without thinking, I reached over and pinched Frederick's arm. He paused, his elegant eyes lowering to meet mine, silently asking, "What's wrong?" Under Monica's seething glare, I swallowed nervously and mumbled, I'm still hungry." During dinner, William stepped out to take a call from his director. Sensing a rare opportunity to be alone with him, I quickly followed. As a now famous celebrity, any slip-up could easily be twisted into a scandal if the paparazzi were around. I was his real fan, and I wouldn't allow that to happen. Once I made sure the area was clear, I approached him, my face flushing with excitement at finally getting this close. William scratched his head awkwardly, his expression apologetic. "I didn't mean to skip out on the dinner." I nodded earnestly, replying, "I know. You don't like the smell of smoke." Having followed all his interviews and shows, I naturally knew about this particular habit of his. He froze for a moment. "Did my brother tell you that?" "He's like me, he doesn't like it either." I shook my head, cutting him off. "I've known for a long time. You love meat, hate smoke, and you're allergic to peanuts. You might not remember, but when I was a freshman in college and going through a really hard time, you left a comment on my Instagram encouraging me. Actually, I'm your fan." Reaching into my bag, I pulled out the carefully prepared gift box. "This is for you." Before I could finish, the sound of something shattering cut through the air. Startled, I turned to see Frederick standing in the shadows. I had no idea how long had been there or how much had overheard, but his hand was clenched around what remained of a broken glass. Shards of glass littered the floor, and blood dripped from his palm, yet his face remained eerily calm as he stared at me. Then his gaze dropped to the box in William's hands. William blinked, visibly startled, and called out, "Fred?" Frederick didn't respond immediately. His fingers pressed against his bleeding palm, as though the pain didn't register. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm fine. I've known for a while that she's your fan." Rolling up his sleeve, he absent-mindedly rubbed his cuff with his finger, a subtle but familiar gesture I'd come to recognize as him suppressing his emotions. To the outside world, he appeared composed, but I knew better. A server arrived with a first aid kit, clearly unsure of the situation, but ready to tend to Frederick's wound. Frederick stood still, his face a mask of icy indifference as the tension in the air grew unbearable. After a long, suffocating pause, he finally spoke. "Victoria," he said, his voice sharp but controlled, "can we talk in private?" The words sent a chill down my spine. This is it, I thought. This is where he finally breaks things off for good. "Wait," I stammered, reluctant to leave. I still had so much to say to William. But before I could find an excuse, William spoke gently, his concern evident. "Miss Victoria, you should help Fred with his injury first. We can talk later." "All right," I murmured reluctantly. Frederick's expression darkened even further. His face now resembled a storm about to break. Frederick kept his face cold and unreadable, refusing to speak. When I picked up the tweezers to remove the shards of glass from his hand, he pulled away sharply. "Don't touch me," he snapped. I glanced out and saw Monica chatting cheerfully with a group of her male friends. After some thought, I asked him, "Are you jealous?" He didn't respond, but the slight twitch in his brow and the tightening of his jaw gave him away. I tried to reason with him. What's the point of sulking here? If you're so upset, why not go out there and win her back? Frederick's brow furrowed deeper, and his hand flexed as if the pain in his palm had worsened. It wasn't until I stood to leave the room that he finally spoke. So, the important person you mentioned was William? The warm yellow light in the room flickered slightly as his question hung in the air. After his hand was bandaged, Frederick bit out another question through gritted teeth. You know everything about him. He likes meat, hates smoke, is allergic to peanuts. Then, his voice dropped lower, more strained. What about me? I finally understood. He wasn't just angry, he was furious about my being a fan of William. I had told him this before. He simply hadn't believed me. Trying to defuse the tension, I licked my dry lips and said softly, "Calm down first." His frustration boiled over, and he glared at me like he wanted to tear me apart. I'm talking about my feelings, and you're talking about fan clubs? He said, his voice rising. He stepped closer, his bandaged hand staining red with blood, as he pressed. If I hadn't walked in tonight, how much longer would you have hidden this from me? He made it sound as though I'd cheated on him. Swallowing nervously, I tried to maintain composure. Frederick, we've already agreed to break up peacefully. He shot back in a low, cold voice. Do you really think we can break up peacefully? Then what's the alternative? I thought. Me, you, and Monica in some bizarre love triangle? My mind flickered to the rumors swirling around outside. I instinctively took a step back and murmured, should I help you pursue the person you really care about? Frederick's gaze dropped, his chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. After a long silence, he released my wrist. When he finally spoke, his voice was like a frozen blade. There's nothing to apologize for. I never liked you anyway. From now on, don't appear in front of me again. And Victoria, you'd better not regret this. As he turned to leave, I thought I saw a faint redness in his eyes. Fred. I called after him. He paused. What do you want now? I pointed to the table. You forgot your phone. Frederick's memory was impeccable, and his phone, a critical work tool, was always by his side. But today, had almost forgotten it. I didn't dwell on it. After getting William's autograph, I left the party early. Later that night, I scrolled through the sparse collection of photos of me and Frederick on my phone. There were so few of them. My finger hovered over the delete option when a notification buzzed on my screen. It was a message from Frederick, send me the photos we took last time. And don't delete my contact only, I can do that. The infamous pride of Mr. Washington was as strong as ever. Feeling a bit mischievous, I replied, what if your future girlfriend sees them? That wouldn't look good, would it? He responded almost immediately, she won't mind. Monica hardly seemed like someone who wouldn't mind. In the end, I didn't send that last reply. News of my breakup with Frederick spread like wildfire. Had once appeared on a popular talk show, so many people knew who he was. And Monica? She was already a small-time influencer with a decent following. She didn't directly address the situation but posted a vague and pointed message online, some people are just plain disgusting. I hope they leave my life for good and never come back. That single line sent the internet into a frenzy, speculating what might have happened. She didn't need to say anything else, just a simple like on a comment about me was enough to stir the pot. One particular comment she liked read, could it be that Victoria, the third wheel? Even after breaking up, she's still clinging to him. She's been with Washington for 5 months, hasn't she made enough money off him already? Poor Monica, being so naive after living abroad, how could she fight against someone lurking in the shadows? The gossip snowballed from there. Someone claiming to be my coworker alleged that they'd seen me leaving the obstetrics department of a hospital. Another wild theory emerged. Frederick's true love had always been Monica, but I had supposedly forced him into a relationship by threatening him with a child, leaving Monica to suffer in silence. I took a swig of whiskey, fuming as I scrolled through the nonsense. Why was I still being dragged into this after our breakup? If Monica got sunburned, it would somehow be my fault as the ex-girlfriend. And a child? Where on earth did that come from? Did they think I magically conjured one? I was just about to open my phone and wage a comment war when I noticed something unusual. The tide in the comments section had shifted. Some new voices had entered the fray, steering the conversation. Victoria is the most beautiful woman alive. I heard you get paid just for complimenting Victoria. Doesn't Monica's post seem a little manipulative? Maybe she's stirring drama to promote her upcoming reality show. The bickering turned into a debate, but the personal attacks against me stopped entirely. Curious, I dug around and found out that someone had spent $1 million on PR to clean up my image. Whoever this mysterious benefactor was, they had vanished as quickly as they'd arrived. Feeling both grateful and puzzled, I sent a private message to the account that seemed to be behind it all. Thank you, dear friend. Do you have a grudge against Monica or something? The account, with a star icon for its profile picture and the username Unloved Boyfriend, took a moment to respond. No. I'm just recently heartbroken and felt like spending money. Spending a casual $1 million just to cheer yourself up? I typed back quickly. Don't be sad. Your ex doesn't know what she's missing. She'll regret letting you go someday. His response came almost immediately, don't insult her. I chuckled at my phone. Clearly. This guy was still hopelessly in love with his ex. I'd been trying my best to avoid Frederick, but somehow, we kept running into each other. One afternoon, while having tea with a friend, she gave me a teasing look and said, I can't help but feel like Frederick's in love with you. I waved it off. You've got it all wrong. Propping her chin on her hand, she persisted, but his phone's lock screen is a picture of you. I shrugged. He probably just hasn't gotten around to changing it. She pressed on, and last time you two shared an elevator, he instinctively tried to hold your hand. That didn't happen. I shot back quickly. Her eyes sparkled. Why are you so flustered? Could it be that you think he feels differently about you too? Her words almost made me second-guess myself. But I quickly snapped back to reality. If Frederick truly had feelings for me, why had he been so eager to break up the moment Monica returned? Speaking of Monica, she didn't seem all that interested in rekindling her romance with Frederick. Instead, she appeared more focused on crafting her online persona. She frequently posted vague, thought-provoking remarks that sparked endless speculation. As expected, her rising popularity landed her an invitation to join a reality TV show. Before filming began, Annie, who had somehow befriended Monica, brought her along to a coworker's celebration dinner. At the dinner, everyone raised their glasses, chatting excitedly about their recent bonuses. One colleague mentioned his project had earned him a $6,000 bonus. Amid the congratulations, Monica scoffed. That's barely enough to buy a bag, she said with a smirk. The room fell into an awkward silence as the colleague sat down, visibly embarrassed. Someone quickly changed the subject, suggesting a game to liven the mood. No longer the center of attention, Monica grew restless. She began recounting her rise to success, talking about how she'd attended the same prestigious schools as Frederick and how the Washington family had always protected her when she was bullied. It was clear she was directing her comments at me. But I didn't feel angry. Instead, I discreetly pulled out my phone and sent Frederick a message, wishing you and Monica a lifetime of happiness. May you be together forever. His reply came almost immediately, Victoria, you're truly cruel. The air at the table grew tense. Suddenly, Monica's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression lighting up as she saw who was calling. Fred, she answered sweetly, putting the call on speaker for everyone to hear. But the voice that came through was cold and distant, with no warmth to spare. You can say whatever you want. But don't drag Victoria into it. If you do, I won't stand by and let it happen again. The room fell deathly silent. It turns out things weren't as simple as I'd thought. Especially when William called me out of the blue, saying his brother had gotten drunk, and he couldn't be there to help since he was out of town. I hesitated at first, but the thought of William being distracted from his work because of Frederick's antics left me no choice. Frederick, as an older brother, was truly a handful. Don't worry, I reassured William. I'll make sure he gets home safe. Half an hour later, I found myself at a bar, locking eyes with Frederick. His hair had grown out slightly, and his jacket hung lazily over the back of his chair. His legs were crossed, and empty bottles littered the table. Around him, a mix of men and women lingered, seemingly waiting for their moment to swoop in. Steeling myself, I approached and waved them off. "Move aside, I'm his sister." The bar manager appeared from the back, clearly recognizing Frederick. He raised an eyebrow and smirked. "Mr. Washington, this lady claims to be your sister." Someone in the crowd whispered, "Is she serious?" "Everyone knows Mr. Washington only has one brother. She's making a fool of herself. I bet she'll get kicked out in no time." Frederick looked up, his drunken gaze landing squarely on me. His dark eyes, clouded with alcohol, seemed to hold me in place. And then he smiled. "Yes," he slurred, "she's my sister." The manager froze, momentarily stunned, before awkwardly laughing and stepping aside. Ignoring the murmurs around us, I grabbed Frederick's arm and began leading him toward the exit. Frederick rarely drank to this point of intoxication. He was usually composed, always knowing his limits, even when entertaining clients over drinks. This level of recklessness was completely unlike him. The bar was deafeningly loud, the music thumping painfully in my ears. Nearby, a couple was having a heated argument. "I just want you to stay with me." "Is that so wrong?" the guy shouted. The girl's face turned red with frustration. "Do you even love me?" It was then that Frederick leaned down, his voice a low, magnetic murmur, by my ear. "I love you," he said. "I love you so much it hurts." My breath caught. Clearly, had misheard the girl's question as something I'd asked. I forced an awkward laugh, brushing it off. Sure. Whatever you say." Behind us, the girl yanked her hand free from the guy's grip and threw a bouquet of roses into a nearby trash can. "Stop giving me this garbage. I was only with you to get closer to him. I love him, not you." The scene seemed to strike a nerve in Frederick. He froze, his entire body going rigid. Without warning, he loosened his tie, grabbed my wrists, and pressed me firmly against the wall. His lips hovered dangerously close to mine, his voice hoarse and tinged with frustration. "Say it again, who do you really love?" This was such an absurd misunderstanding. I hadn't said anything. Before I could respond, his warm lips brushed against my forehead, slowly trailing downward. The faint taste of alcohol lingered in the air as he paused near my mouth. "You've lost your mind," I gasped, my heart pounding in my chest. Snapping out of my daze, I tried to push him away, intending to run. But Frederick's tall, athletic frame was an unyielding wall. At 62, he loomed over me, his gym-toned body practically immovable. In my frantic attempt, my hands accidentally brushed against his rock-solid abs. "Nope. Not moving." He braced an arm against the wall, caging me in, his presence overwhelming. Even the ticking of his watch seemed unnervingly loud in the stillness between us. The first time I kissed him, it had lasted all of a second. This time, his kiss lingered. For a long, long time. Finally, breathless and cornered, I whispered, my voice trembling but certain. "I love you. I love you." I avoided Frederick for an entire week. That afternoon, while out shopping with my cousin, I was trying to clear my head when I came across a uniquely designed handbag. Just as I was admiring it, a trendy-looking guy nearby spoke up. "Something this expensive isn't necessary, is it?" he said, patting his girlfriend's shoulder. "Don't be like them, alright? Let's keep things simple and practical, no need to be materialistic. Girls like her are just so shallow. That's why I love how pure and kind you are." His girlfriend, who had been eyeing the bag with clear admiration, hesitated. "I don't even like it that much." "You don't have to buy it for me." "Good," he said with a satisfied smile. "Pick something else, and I'll cover it." Then, without a second glance at her, he turned to browse gaming equipment worth thousands of dollars. The girl stood there, clearly disheartened. I put down the bag, leaned toward her, and asked if she wanted to step away for a moment. Then I turned to the guy. "You're absolutely right," I said sweetly. "Let me have a word with her. It'll help convince her." After a brief conversation, the two of them broke up. I'd almost forgotten about buying the bag altogether until I returned home to find a pile of neatly wrapped handbags waiting at my doorstep. The prominent logos made it clear they weren't cheap. Otherwise, they could have easily been mistaken for unwanted leftovers. The sheer extravagance made the sender obvious. As if on cue, Frederick appeared from the staircase, his gaze downcast. For once, his usually flawless face seemed weary, tinged with a hint of vulnerability. "I just wanted to apologize," he said quietly. "For what happened last time. I assume." I shook my head and pressed my lips together. "It's fine. I've kissed you without permission before too, so let's call it even." Something between us had shifted. Frederick didn't know that being with him wasn't just about William. As I'd told him before, William had only been part of the reason. Had always treated me like I was optional, dispensable. Except for his outburst at the bar, had never once said he liked me. As I moved to close the door, his hand suddenly shot out, stopping it. The doorframe pressed against his fingers, leaving red marks. His voice was tight, his expression strained as he muttered, "It's not even." I hesitated, unsure of what to say. Finally, I asked, "Didn't you say you didn't like me? That I shouldn't appear in front of you again? That I shouldn't regret it?" He was silent for a moment, his breathing heavy. Then, his voice dropped even lower, tinged with weariness as his hand moved to shield his eyes. "I did say that," he admitted. His tone almost defeated. "But I regret it now." Every day, I endured the prying eyes of my coworkers, all buzzing with gossip. Monica's initial attempts to boost her fame through the reality show and fabricated rumors quickly backfired. Within weeks of filming, scandals about her began surfacing, and the backlash was relentless. What Shed hoped would elevate her popularity now had people demanding that the director replace her. Frederick, who had always maintained a low profile and ignored rumors, broke his silence by posting on social media, "I've only ever had one girlfriend, and that's Victoria. It was her in the past, and it will always be her in the future." That one statement shattered Monica's lies completely. Left with no choice, she issued an apology on Instagram, trying to salvage her reputation. But she didn't stop there. She came to me in person, tears streaming down her face, pleading for my help. "I've already been hospitalized from all the stress," she sobbed. "It's all a misunderstanding. Frederick and I were just acquaintances, because of our families. He never came to find me abroad. I only acted out because I once had feelings for him." When I didn't respond, her tone quickly shifted. Growing agitated, she snapped, "I've already apologized. What more do you want from me?" Her demeanor was far from that of a fragile patient. Some mutual friends also joined in, their expressions full of indignation. "Do you really need to ruin someone's career over this? Do you even know how hard Monica's life has been? She's finally building something for herself." Monica might have come from a wealthy family, but she was an illegitimate child. Her status had always been precarious, and she'd grown up facing constant disdain. Treated like a servant in her own home, she wasn't favored by her father. And her mother had no standing in the family. It wasn't until her brothers bullied her and Frederick stepped in to help that she began orbiting their social circle as a friend. Her friends now held her protectively, glaring at me with hostility. They painted Monica as the ultimate victim, hoping for a shred of pity from me. But they were out of luck. I rubbed my temples, exhaling a tired sigh. "I don't think Monica is as innocent as you make her out to be. Personal hardship isn't an excuse to hurt others." Later, while talking with my best friend about the mysterious person who had hired PR for me, she gave me a knowing smile. "It has to be the fabulously rich Mr. Washington behind this." I dismissed the idea. No way. Frederick would never bother with something so trivial. But she grabbed my phone and typed out a message to the PR account, "What's your name? Don't lie, liars don't get wives." The message was marked as read, but there was no reply for a long time. And yet, the silence itself spoke volumes. Sometimes, not replying is already an answer. I never expected to receive an invitation to William's birthday party. As the only fan invited, I was over the moon. Other fans, naturally, bombarded me with questions. Girl, what's your connection to him? Could you get me an autograph? Oh my god, I'm so jealous. I was there to see my idol, but William had other plans, namely, playing matchmaker between me and Frederick. The conversation somehow drifted to Frederick, and William didn't hold back. He started by ranting about his older brother, clearly harboring some grievances. When we were kids, he used to steal caterpillars to scare me. Then he'd trick me out of my allowance and leave me running around like an idiot. William's expression turned contemplative. I told him back then he was so terrible that no one would want him when he grew up. After a pause, his tone softened. But when I almost drowned once, it was Fred who jumped in without hesitation to save me. And when I insisted on joining the entertainment industry, he shouldered the family's burdens all on his own. He sighed. My brother's got a weird way of showing he cares. He never admits to liking anything. When he was 10, he took in a stray cat and dreamed of opening a pet shop one day. But our parents threw the cat out, and it got killed by a stray dog the next day. And even though he says he hates it when I call him brother, every time I do, he gets all shy about it. That night, my phone had run out of battery, and I was walking home when chaos broke out in the neighborhood. 2 neighbors had gotten into an argument, and a stray bullet had hit a passing woman. The sound of sirens pierced the air, and the atmosphere grew tense. People were scared to approach the scene, and the streets emptied quickly. The dark forest around the area seemed to echo with the sound of the wind. Frederick, however, had seen the news and rushed over immediately. He had just returned from a business trip and was still dressed in a thin shirt, despite the chilly November air. His face looked exhausted, his sharp features softened by weariness. I was brushing my teeth when I saw him at the door. You? I asked through a mouthful of toothpaste. Seeing I was unharmed, he let out a small breath of relief. Then, as if catching himself, he quickly changed his tone. A client of mine lives nearby. I just came by to drop something off. Frederick Washington personally delivering something to a client? Hardly believable. It was clearly an excuse. Remembering what William had said earlier that day, I couldn't help but nod to myself. Frederick, you really are bad at being honest with your feelings. Thinking back to our 5 months together, Frederick had always respected my wishes and preferences. He gave me gifts he knew I'd like, but each time he'd brush it off casually. I bought too many. Take one. It's a gift from a client, might as well give it to you. I was just passing by. Snapping out of my thoughts, I resolutely closed the door in his face. But as I peeked out from the window, I didn't see him leave. Minutes later, I opened the door again and found him still standing there. He leaned against the wall, his head lowered. After a long silence, he finally said, "I'll just stay here and keep watch. It makes me feel better." I stepped closer, placing my palm against his chest, before he could react. The previously steady beat of his heart suddenly raced beneath my hand. William said you blush whenever he calls you brother. Is that true? Frederick frowned. Who told you that? His denial was swift and firm. Of course not. I grinned and leaned up on my tiptoes, whispering 2 soft words in his ear, "Big brother." To my surprise, I watched as his ears and face flushed crimson at lightning speed. Huh. I said thoughtfully. It's true after all. Though it's one thing if a girl calls you that, but why would you blush when a guy says it? Frederick's face turned even redder this time from sheer frustration. Enough with your ridiculous ideas. And I don't blush for just anyone. What happened tonight? Don't you dare tell anyone. Our relationship felt like it was shrouded in a thin veil, unclear, yet impossible to ignore. The next day, Frederick asked me, "You once said you'd help me pursue the person I like. Does that offer still stand?" It wasn't like I could just ask him who he liked, so I resigned myself to the trap I'd set. It still stands, I replied cautiously. He followed up, "Do you know what she wants to eat tonight?" At that moment, my boss walked silently past my desk, making me feel as if a dagger was pressed against my back. After a pause, I answered, "No idea." Frederick's expression remained inscrutable as he considered something. "Then can you ask her for me?" A minute later. I replied with a sigh, steak. She wants steak. Fine, I thought. Dinner is just dinner. What could possibly go wrong? Curious, I asked, will William be there too? Frederick's response was delayed. You're something else. Then he added, yes, he'll be there. That answer genuinely caught me off guard. Annie, ever the opportunist, rolled her chair over to my desk. Dick, going to dinner with Mr. Washington? Her tone was suddenly ingratiating, and even the way she addressed Frederick had changed. I always knew Monica wasn't a good person. And look at her now, nobody likes her anymore. When I used to hang out with her, she seemed generous on the surface, but she always made us split the bill, behind the scenes. Hey, since your friends are my friends, why don't you introduce me to Mr. Washington sometime? She tugged at my sleeve as she rambled, her chatter relentless. I finally pulled out my earbuds and blinked at her. Sorry, what did you just say? Her eyes widened. And she quickly muttered an excuse before slinking back to her desk. At 6 o'clock, I glanced out the window and saw Frederick's car waiting downstairs. Though his office wasn't far from mine, it took about 20 minutes to navigate through the dense evening crowds. Grabbing my things, I dashed out of the building. Why are you in such a rush? He asked, a faint smile playing at his lips as he reached out to steady me. I glanced past him into the car. There's no one here. Frederick's smile lingered for a fleeting moment before he said, you know I don't lie. And he hadn't. At the restaurant, he slid a photo album across the table toward me. The images inside were a stark contrast to the Frederick I knew, polished, composed, and undeniably regal, the quintessential heir to a wealthy family. But William? Every photo showed him covered in mud, his hands and face smudged, caught in the middle of some wild antic. Even through the lens of nostalgia, they were objectively unflattering pictures. Yet, with my fan filter firmly in place, I couldn't help but exclaim, he's so adorable. Frederick looked genuinely taken aback, his brow furrowing slightly as he studied me. This is adorable to you? I nodded enthusiastically. After a brief hesitation, Frederick said, I might have similar photos. Want to see? By the end of the year, William's latest drama earned him a prestigious award. At the awards ceremony, he stood tall on stage in a well-fitted suit, his refined features illuminated under the spotlight as he delivered a heartfelt acceptance speech. It was surreal to think back to when I first became his fan. Back then, he was just a small-time actor, struggling to make a name for himself. His family had been against his decision to enter the entertainment industry, leaving him to earn every opportunity through his own efforts. The most dangerous moment of his career had been during a stunt gone wrong. A snapped harness sent him plummeting to the ground, leaving him with a fractured bone. Even as he lay in the hospital, William's optimism shone through. He shared his experiences with the crew and brainstormed ways to improve safety measures on set. Around that time, I was fresh out of high school, caught in a heated conflict with my parents over my choice of major. They wanted me to pursue something practical, and even threatened to cut off my financial support if I didn't comply. William and I bonded over our shared struggles, becoming friends despite never having met in person. Back then, I made a bet with him, you'll become a shining star one day, a big-name actor everyone admires. And he replied, and you'll be an incredible designer, mark my words. Now, standing here, we'd both made good on those promises. The lights dimmed and flickered, casting fleeting shadows across the room. Under the brim of his baseball cap, Frederick's expression was hard to make out. I turned to him and asked, having a superstar younger brother, doesn't that put a lot of pressure on you? Frederick frowned slightly, clearly disagreeing. To me, he's still just an immature little brat. The two brothers knew each other's embarrassing pasts all too well, so I hurried to change the subject before William's image in my mind could crumble. Does it bother you? I asked cautiously. That I only got together with you because of William? Frederick's Adam's apple bobbed as he paused, clearly taken aback by the question. At first, it really bothered me, he admitted, his gaze dropping to meet mine. After a moment, a small smile tugged at his lips. But now? I guess I'm grateful for it. His words left me flustered, and I instinctively avoided his gaze. Still, I couldn't let the moment pass without clarifying, for what it's worth. I can tell the difference between admiration and love. We spent New Year's Eve at a hotel in the heart of the city. By the floor-to-ceiling windows, balloons floated silently upward, their soft shapes vanishing into the night sky. A familiar shadow approached, and the faint, distinct scent of him filled the air. My heart raced wildly. Truthfully, I had already made up my mind about tonight. I shut my eyes, anticipating what would happen next. But things didn't go quite as I imagined. Frederick wrapped his arms around me, holding me close. After a moment of silence, he finally spoke, "Victoria, I never actually planned on breaking up with you." What a coincidence, I thought. I'd already figured that out. A strange pang of disappointment welled up inside me, though I wasn't sure why. I tried to mask it by playing along. "Then why did you?" He leaned against my shoulder, his warm breath brushing against my ear, sending a ticklish shiver down my neck. I instinctively nestled further into his embrace, my voice soft. "Well?" He exhaled against my skin before muttering, "Because Mike, that idiot, said fighting makes relationships stronger." Mike had been Frederick's friend since childhood. Though their families were similar in wealth, their personalities couldn't have been more different. Mike had shown an uncanny knack for socializing from an early age. By the time he was 10, he already had several girls vying to marry him. Frederick rarely sought Mike's advice, but there was one exception when he wanted tips on how to strengthen our relationship. Mike's response? "Relationships thrive on arguments." Remembering that, Frederick's expression darkened. "But who could have guessed you wouldn't even bother to argue with me?" The clock struck midnight, signaling the start of a new year. I held onto his hand tightly, a smile curling my lips as I looked up at him. "Fred," I said, my voice bright and sincere, "let's start over and date again." The end.